Why are you staring, Nanako? Stop!
There are many interesting characters in the Persona universe, and I'm not just talking about the main cast, but also the many confidants and even the villains that the game throws at you. However, what most people don't know is that more often than not, these characters are often inspired by real-life figures with similar story and trait. And today, together we'll be exploring the story of the two firearm enthusiasts from Persona 5, Shinya Oda, the king of the arcades, and munehisa Iwai, the master of the untouchable airsoft shop, and their real-life counterparts. And while we are at it, I'd like to share with you guys a lot of interesting facts about the world surrounding this character as well. Let's start by introducing our first character, Shinya Oda. Shinya is an elementary school boy who played at Akihabara Arcade and is recognized as the gaming genius known as the King. Hearing about his fame, Joker rushed over to find Shinya in Akihabara in order to get him to teach him how to defeat a shadow of a video game cheater, whom the Phantom Thief cannot defeat due to the cheater belief that he is invincible, making him truly invincible while residing in the metaverse. Shinya then agreed to help Joker as long as he could prove that he really has a connection with the Phantom Thief, which of course he does. Surprisingly, despite having quite a foul mouth when playing gun about and losing his cool while teaching Joker his technique, Shinya is quite introverted and antisocial due to his mother's confrontational demeanor at the school. And because of his mother's bad relationship with the school board, she's gathered a lot of bad reputation, causing many kids at the school to not like Shinya and even start to bully him as a result. During one of the Confidant dialogue with Joker, Shinya even referred to the whole drama as a war that he must win, no matter what. And just like his gun about record, he hasn't lost any yet. By the way, you want to remember this dialogue about the war because it's going to make a lot of sense in a bit. So, who is Shinya's real-life counterpart? Well, Shinya's last name is Oda, which he happened to share with the legendary warlord from the Sengoku era named Oda Nobunaga. And I guess you did not really have to remember that dialogue after all, since this is pretty much the next thing I mentioned. But for those who are not familiar, the Sengoku period is a period of the Japanese Civil War where many influential figures rose up and waged war against each other in order to control Japan. It lasts from 1477 to around 1573. The actual end date is still unknown, as there are many sources stating otherwise. Oda Nobunaga was born June 23, 1534, in Nagoya, Owari Province. As the second son of Oda Nobuhide, the leader of the Oda clans, he was well known for his peculiar behavior during his early years, earning the nickname the Fool of Owari. Nobunaga was a clear speaker with a commanding presence. However, he often mingled with local youth without caring about his social status. And with the introduction of firearms into Japan, he became well known for his fondness of the Tanegashima matchlock gun, which he would go on to be one of the first warlords to implement this weapon into his army. Here's the brief detail and history of how the Tanegashima gun made it to Japan. The Tanegashima was based on snap matchlock produced in Gao, Portuguese India, which was captured by the Portuguese in 1510s. The name Tanegashima came from the Japanese island where a Chinese sailing ship carrying two Portuguese adventurers anchored during a typhoon in 1543. Tanegashima Tokitaka, the lord of the island, obtained two matchlock muskets from the Portuguese and had a swordsmith reproduce the matchlock barrel and firing mechanism. However, he was not able to perfect the production until getting help from the Portuguese blacksmith at the later date. And within 10 years of its introduction, over 300,000 Tanegashima rifle was reportedly produced. But the Tanegashima also shared weakness with other matchlock guns during that time, suffering from slow firing rate due to the long setup times and even longer reload times. While its bullet was extremely lethal, able to pierce through any armor and shield, it was not easy to land a shot from a far range. With that said, the volley firing formation was introduced around the world, where multiple gunners would line up in a straight line and fire a volley at the same time, creating a wall of bullets. Additionally, another line of gunners could be positioned behind the first, ready to step in and fire the next volley, covering the first line while they started the reloading process. While this topic is still being debated, some historians believe that Nobunaga was among the first to use this tactic in Japan. This similarity can be seen in Shinya, who introduced the Phantom Thief to different firearm tactics as the player leveled up his confidence. Let's continue the story of Oda Nobunaga. In 1551, Nobunaga's father died unexpectedly. Many would expect a child to be mournful at their father's funeral, but this is not what happens. In fact, it has been said that Nobunaga acted outrageously during the funeral, throwing ceremonial incense at the altar. With that being said, despite Nobunaga being the rightful successor of Nobuhide, there are many who oppose him, and they join Nobunaga's sibling instead to rise against him. We'll talk more about this family drama a little bit later, but it took Nobunaga nearly 10 years to unify his own clan and rid of everyone who opposed him from within. Finally, in the 1560s, Nobunaga began leading the Oda clan in the war to unify Japan against other warlords, becoming the most powerful warlord by 1573 and overthrowing the Ashikaga shogunate. By 1580, he was able to control most of the Honshu island and defeat the Ikoiki, a religious rebellious group who opposed the rule of governor and warlord. Nobunaga's rule was notable for innovative military tactics, promoting free trade, reforming Japan's civil governments, and marking the beginning of the Momoyama periods. However, he was also characterized by a harsh suppression of those who resist his authority, which we can also see in Shinya's personality. While he is willing to teach Joker about different new tactics that can be used against Shadow in the Metaverse, Shinya can be seen losing his cool when Joker failed to grasp the concept being taught. In the Honji incident of 1582, Nobunaga was assassinated by his retainer Akechi Mitsuhide in Kyoto and forces to commit seppuku, a ritualistic suicide by disembowelment. However, Nobunaga's subordinates, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, then succeeded him, and along with another subordinate named Tokugawa Ieyasu, achieved Japan unification shortly after. Moving back to Shinya Confidant, after losing to Takekuma, a professional gamer and another cheater in Gunabout, Shinya opened up to Joker, explaining that his mother taught him that winning is everything, and his attitude began to shift. He then stole money from the student at his school after beating them in the video games. Confronted by the victim at the arcade, Shinya claimed that he is the king and he is collecting that money to use as a war fund to make himself stronger. However, despite being aggressive and believing that he is in the right, the victim shook Shinya by telling him he is a bad guy, and he hoped that the Phantom Thief picking him as their next target. After the kid left, Shinya then organized his thought with Joker, saying that this is the first time he felt bad when he is winning. Realizing that his moral value is not all about winning, he then told Joker that he don't want to be a bad guy, he wanted to be more like the Phantom Thief he admired. After this revelation, Shinya began to change and try his best to do what he thought was right. He also attempted to reason with his mother when he thought she was going too far. However, his mother became aware of this and started to accuse Joker of being a bad influence on her son, telling him that she wanted her obedient son back. And while we're on the topic of Shinya's mother, I'd like to take you guys back once more to the Sengoku periods of Japan and talk about Oda Nobunaga's mother, Dota Gosen. And while unlike Shinya's mother, Oda Hanae, who only has one son, Dota Gosen has multiple children with Oda Nobuhide. Nevertheless, it was said that Gosen did not like her son Nobunaga, who has ambitious and unconventional behavior. Instead, she preferred his well-manners and obedient younger brother Nobuyuki, and these elements might inspire the relationship between Hanae and Shinya. Anyway, this family drama is much worse than you think. Remember that it took Oda Nobunaga nearly 10 years to unify his own clan by fighting those who oppose him? Well, Nobuyuki was one of his opponents. However, Nobuyuki was faced with defeat against his brother in the Battle of Ino. But rather than killing Nobuyuki, Nobunaga accepted his mother Dosen's play for his brother's life and let him go. But despite that, at a later date, Nobuyuki once again attempted a rebel against his older brother and finally was assassinated in Kyushu Castle in 1558. Now, let's continue our Persona 5 story. After learning about Joker's existence, Shinya's mother then threatened to denounce him to the authorities. This showed that rather than teaching her son to be kind, she preferred him to stay cold and do whatever he can to win, even if that resulted in bullying those weaker than him. Shinya, who remembered that this was not how his mother used to be, then requests the Phantom Thief to change her heart and make her less controlling, helping her realizing how her behavior affects everyone around her, including her son. Shinya himself then delivered the Phantom Thief calling card to his mother. At a later time, the encounter with Hanae Shadow tells us that Hanae has grown more aggressive after the divorce, as people around her treat her badly, and her answer to this is to develop a strong front and never appear weak to anyone. After defeating the shadow Hanae, she realized that while she busy making sure not to be looked down upon, she forgot that despite it all, even when everyone is looking down on her, she still has Shinya, and Shinya is what most important to her. In the next meeting with Shinya, he claimed that things have improved after his mother's heart was changed in mementos, and Hanae has apologized to him for her action. Shinya then invited the kids whom he has harassed to the arcade, where he's apologized for his action and promised to repay him when he has enough money saved up. The kid accepts Shinya's apologies and asks if Shinya can teach him how to play gunpowder as a sort of reconciliation. Takekuma then showed up and challenged Shinya once more. But unlike the previous time, Shinya was able to maintain his cool and effortlessly defeat Takekuma, despite his trickery. Takekuma, who lost the game, then said that this is the end for him. But Shinya reassured him that losing is not the end and his life will continue, showing how much Shinya has grown. Impressed, the kid referred to Shinya as the new champion. Shinya then tells Joker that he used to think that winning is the coolest thing, but now he also thinks that being nice is also cool. He understands now that he wants to win to be strong enough to protect what he loves, such as his mother, and not just for the sake of winning. While Oda Nobunaga and Shinya's story have many similarities, the big one is that both characters were dethroned, especially Oda Nobunaga, who lost his life. However, his legacy and clan rose afterward, as they ultimately unified Japan as one. As for Shinya, he is able to learn from his mistake and come back stronger, understanding what is truly important to him. He is now more deserving of the title of the king. Shinya also has a healthy relationship with his mother and his schoolmate due to this growth. With that being said, Shinya Akana is the tower. It represents sudden change, upheaval, chaos, revelation, and awakening. Let's take a look at what being depicted in the picture of the tower according to the biddytarot.com. The tower shows a tall tower perched on top of a rocky mountain. Lightning strikes set the building alight, and two people leap from windows, head first and arms stretched. It is a scene of chaos and destruction. The tower itself is a solid structure, but because it has built on a shaky foundation, it's only take one bolt of lightning to bring it down. It represents ambition and goal made on false premise. The lightning represents a sudden surge of energy and insight that lead to a breakthrough or revelation. It's enter near the top of the building and knock off the crown, symbolizing the energy flowing down from the universe to the crown chakra. The people are desperate to escape from the burning building, not knowing what awaits them as they fall. Around them are 22 flames representing the 12 signs of zodiac and 10 points of tree of life, suggesting that even in time of disaster, there is always divine intervention. And with that, while the tower is often looked at as a bad card, it also represents growth and opportunity for new foundation to be discovered. As the original tower collapsed, a stronger one with a solid foundation can be built in its place for a better future, linking it back to both Shinya and Nobunaga's story. Our next Confidant are a lot closer than you think, and with that being said, we'll continue to explore more of the Sengoku period, and like before, let's start by introducing the character Munehisa Iwai. The name Munehisa means religions, a point of origin of essence, while Hisa means long time. His last name Iwa means rock, and I mean well, mineshaft, and pit. If you already complete Iwai Confidant in the game, you might already be able to link his name to his story and personality. However, his name also makes a reference to his in real life counterpart as well, so make sure to remember it for now. On another note, Iwai acts as a classic weapon shopkeeper in the world of Persona 5, where he's selling and customizing airsoft gun for Joker and his crew. Oh, and he also happened to sell regular weapon and some accessory as well, even though they have no business being in the airsoft shop. Growing up, Iwai was raised by a single mother with a self-destructive style, and his lack of loving family drove him to join the Yakuza. In the clan, he becomes sworn brother with a man named Suda, who is now his opponent. Iwai was contacted several years ago by a lady who sought to sell him her infant son for drugs money. When he refused, he abandoned her boy and left. Iwai later adopted the child and named him Kaoru, and shortly after, he left the Yakuza to raise Kaoru full time. Iwai then opened an airsoft shop named Untouchable to make a living, which interestingly he mentioned at some point that he did not like. This just adds another layer to how much he cared about Kaoru, willing to do anything for him. Additionally, after learning that Kaoru was bullied because of a scar that he has on his neck, Iwai decided to tattoo himself in the same spot with a gecko tattoo to help ease his son's loneliness and remind him that he is not alone. We also learned that the gecko was believed to symbolize the protection of one's home and family from Kaoru when hanging out with him at the diner. However, Iwai is reluctant to tell Kaoru about his past with the Yakuza and how the biological mother of Kaoru dumped him. Instead, he tells him that he was a family friend who adopted him after his parents died in a car accident. With that out of the way, Iwai are extremely likely to be based on a real-life merchant of Sengoku periods named Imai Sokyo, who is commissioned by Nobunaga for the production of mass firearms. And while both Iwai and Imai share similar name, and both also aid someone by selling them firearms, those were not the only similarity they share. But let's use Imai in introduction as a build-up to those topics. Imai Sokyo was a Japanese merchant from the port town of Sakai. His yago or store name was Naya. Yago is a phrase used in traditional Japanese culture to describe names that have been passed down through a guild, studio, or other condition, other than blood connection. Now let's talk a little bit about the city of Sakai, as the rest of the story will make more sense as to why it is such an important city. Sakai is a city located in Osaka Prefecture, Japan, and it is one of the most important seaport of Japan. And that's not all, it is also one of the largest. An interesting little trivia about Sakai is that it is known for its keyhole-shaped burial mounds, known as akofuns, dating all the way back to the 5th century. During the Muromachi and Sengoku period, about 1450 to 1650, Sakai was an autonomous city run by a merchant oligarchs, making it one of the richest cities in Japan. It was also one of the main producers of textile and ironwork in Japan. Moving back to Imai Sokyo's story, whom I'm gonna be calling Sokir from now, has been learning a tea ceremony from Takeno Juo, another well-known merchant figure of the Sengoku era. Sokyo then go on to marry Juo's daughter, inheriting his teaware and lineage as a tea master. Sokyo's main line of business was rifle and ammunition. He made a major donation to the Daito Kuchi, a Buddhist temple, in 1554, gaining a considerable influence in a local merchant circle and becoming a member of the city leadership council of Sakai. In 1568, Sokyo visited the city and met warlord Oda Nobunaga, offering him various tea accessories from his previous master. This earned him the favor of Nobunaga and a noble title. At a later time, when Nobunaga was trying to take control of Sakai, many council members discussed seeking defense from the Miyoshi clan, but Sokyo recommended a peaceful submission. With that said, he then worked as mediator and arranged for the city's submission. Sokyo and Nobunaga's relationship continued to improve, and he then earned a lucrative commission to manufacture firearms for the Oda clan, and a position as a local magistrate in the process. Sokyo was in charge of tax collection on the outskirts of town, as well as passport application and other associated concerns. He also has some authority over the nearby Tajima silver mine and a local blacksmith metallurgist from whom he obtained material for rifle and firework. Well, I hope that you still remember what Iwai name meant, as the connection I mentioned earlier is being discussed here. Sokyo then taught Nobunaga and Toyotomi Hideyoshi the way of the tea ceremony, garnering their favor. He attended the Grand Kitano tea ceremony in 1587 and was one of Hideyoshi's 3 tea masters, along with Sen no Rikyo and Sokyo Suda, which serve as another clue here that Iwai is based on Imai Sokyo, as Iwai Yakuza's sworn brother name is also Suda. In the same year, Sokyo also assists in preparation of lacquer for a large wooden Buddha statue that Hideyoshi had built. Later on in his life, Sokyo passed on his business and official post to his son, Imai Sokun, who carried on his father's heritage as a tea master and advisor to Hideyoshi. And eventually, Tokugawa Ieyasu. Sokyo died in 1593 at the age of 73, leaving behind a multitude of memoirs and records. The Obeans, a tea house associated with him, may still be found at Sakai Daisen Park, and Sokyo is buried in Ringoji in Sakai. And here's come another clue, and it is the fact that part of Sokun name, the son of Imai Sokyo, can also be read as Kaoru, the exact same name as Iwai's adopted son. So here are some interesting facts about Sokun before we move on. After his father's death, Sokun take on the role of his father, becoming the advisor and tea master to Toyotomi Hideyoshi. Following Hideyoshi's death in 1598, he served Tokugawa Ieyasu, the next shogun, who was originally another subordinate of Oda Nobunaga. Ieyasu then named him Ahatamoto, a rank for samurai who were in direct service of Tokugawa shogunates. Sokun also helped organize the dispatch of Red Seal ship, trading ship formerly authorized by the shogunate to trade with the Asian mainland. Now, let's take a look at the definition of the Hangman Arcana that Iwai represents. Here is the information taken from biditarot.com. The Hangman reminds you that sometimes you have to put everything on hold before you can take the next step, or the universe will do it on your behalf, and it may not always be at the most convenient times. You may have heard the saying, what got you here won't get you there, and that's indeed is at play in this card. The Hangman calls you to release the old mental model and behavioral patterns that no longer serve you, so you can see your world from a new perspective and embrace new opportunity that would have otherwise been hidden from you if you didn't hit the brake. So while it's not a direct one-to-one, both Iwai and Imai's story can be summarized through the lens of the Hangman description. Let's start with Iwai, who holding on to the belief that Kaoru will reject him and grow up on the wrong path, just like himself. With that being said, Iwai seemed to be satisfied with how things are and plan on continuing to live this way, keeping his son in the dark. However, the event developing between him and Suda forced this way of life to pause, and Iwai is stuck in a stasis period of trying to hold on to the relationship he has with his son. But in the end, with the support of Joker and Kaoru, remind him that despite not being blood related, the gecko symbol connect them together. Iwai then is able to move to a better phase of his life and let go of his old belief. And I'm not gonna lie, when Iwai explained to Kaoru how he kept everything secret because he doesn't want him to get a bad influence from a loser parents and go down the wrong path, just to be corrected by Kaoru that his dad is not a loser. The animation of Iwai trying to cover his smiling face indeed also bring me joy. And to make it even better, Iwai's parting gift to Joker was a gecko pins, symbolizing that Joker is also part of the gecko family. But when it comes to the case of Imai's Sokyo, the benefit he is able to gain is tremendous. Despite being born into a period of civil war, he was able to still flourish in his career as a merchant and is able to even inherit a lot of wealth and stature from his master. However, he was being tested once Nobunaga was set to invade and take over Sakai, where he has to choose between submission of the city or fighting against one of the most feared warlords. While the council of Sakai considered fighting back by asking for aid from other warlords, Sokyo chose to let go of his and the city of Sakai old way of life and submit to Nobunaga. However, rather than just submitting, he was wise and able to understand that with the established relationship he had with Nobunaga in the past, he was able to negotiate the best submission deal for the people of Sakai and Nobunaga. With that being said, Sokyo was able to make the best of a very difficult situation and generate generational wealth for him and his family to come.